Here's an interesting thing. So far, 2 schools, Notre Dame and Georgetown, are using that book in their developmental leadership arena in their schools. Right? I've got 6 other universities that are looking at it, and I suspect before we're done, because the fellow who wrote the foreword of that book, Bob Anderson, is a world-renowned leadership development guy who basically said that that book is the next conversation in leadership development. And when somebody like that says something like that, guess what? People want to see that book, right? Now it's written in a bunch of, when you read it, you're going to go, I don't get it. It's a bunch of stories, right? That book is just chock full of stories, right? But what it is I took myself and I said, this is how, and I had to be pretty arrogant to do this, as you can understand, but I said, this is how maturity happens, right? This is a life of somebody who was a searcher and a seeker and wanted to know and was just obsessed with understanding. And that drive, as I worked through my own life, started to create more and more and more maturity. And what maturity ends up being in the eyes of leadership development is that you are including more people than just yourself. That really is what it all, that's all maturity ends up being, is moving from where all you think about is you and your ego to where actually you hold the space for everyone else to come along with you. So rather than on a piece of paper, you be in the big circle and everybody else is all the little circles, pretty soon maturity is as all those circles start to become the same size. Right? That's what maturity really is. I can explain it that quickly, right? And what I did is I wrote a whole book with all these stories about the bumps and all of the things that happen in a lifetime that moved someone from where all they cared about was how they made their next dollar, right, to all they care about now is how everyone else is served. Because my life is now a life of service. Do they pay me nice money in the corporate world? Yeah. I don't care. I really don't. Could care less about what they pay me in the corporate world, right? Because what happens is every day I get to sit with people whose life I can actually make a difference for them. And when they go back out there and they hire you, they're hiring somebody that stands for more than something that's just myself, right? And that's service. So that's all it is. That's all maturity is. It's that simple, right? Well, when you put some really nice words with it, right? So they teach you to use bigger words. You put a few of those in a book and you tell your stories, right? And they say, oh, that's the next conversation in leadership development theory. Sounds pretty important. All it is a bunch of stories from Corona and everywhere else I've been along the way. That's all it is. Right? With some words that some really intelligent people taught me as I went along. It's that simple. There's nothing that you learn in life that can't be reduced to what's going on right here with me and you. There's nothing that can happen in this life. If you can't tell a story to a 12-year-old kid that takes the most important thing in life, if you can't reduce it to that level, then it's not the most important thing in life. You know you can tell a 12-year-old kid what it means to serve, right? What it means to do something for someone else, not himself. A 12-year-old can understand that. That's the highest value in humankind. Period. The highest level of maturity can be reduced to a conversation with a 12-year-old. It's that simple, right? And we all understand that that sit here in this room. So if you can't do that, you don't pass the test. Go back, get some words that work for a 12-year-old. That's my advice. And when you get in a corporate room, use the fancy words because they'll appreciate it and they'll send you a check. But the reality is underneath that, right? You're just talking to a bunch of 12-year-olds about how it is to serve something more than themselves. And that's what this lifetime has turned into, right? So some kid who went to Jefferson Elementary, Letha Rady Junior High, Corona High, who sits here with people that did exactly the same thing as I did, who actually serve us now. They're mayors and policemen and firemen and teachers. All of those people I grew up with. Some of us are here, some of us aren't. If you want to, really interesting, go out on Facebook. There's a page on Facebook called 10 Ways That You Know You Grew Up in Corona. If you want to see the stories from Corona, go get on that page and take a look. There's 4,688 members left when we checked this morning. Okay? But if you want to see people saying, hey, do you remember? Do you remember Mava ice cream? Do you remember? They'll know the name of I thought it was Lockman's, but it was
Lockman's was here, but
it wasn't them. It was another one, wasn't it? Yeah. So they'll know all that stuff, and you can ask that question. Hey, what was the name of that thing down there? You guys remember that? Or they'll say, what was your first job in Corona? Holy cow, they said that. There must be 300 or 400 comments of the first job that people had in Corona. Go out and read that. You want to see what made Corona? You find out all the first jobs. You know, I worked here. I worked there. And you know, we used to do that, and we did this. How many people were born in Corona? And if you weren't, where were you born? And you sort of take a look at where everybody came from and what made this town, you know, and that'll happen again, right? Your generation will be able to contribute to that, right? That history is part of who we all are. You know, my little town, when I was in ninth grade, we had a celebration on the football field at Corona High School, the only high school in the town at the time. And we had moved to the #2 city in the county of Riverside. We had passed Palm Springs. And I remember with 12,600 and some odd people, right? So in ninth grade, we were a city of 12,600 and whatever the number was, right? And we had a celebration about that. People celebration right up on the high school field. We were pretty happy about that because we were now #2. We were tired of being #3. We were tired of Palm Springs. Riverside was always way bigger than we were. So that's okay. #2 worked for us, right? That's where we started, and we started way before that. And so that's all part of where we come from and who we are. And what's rich about that are the stories that we hold and the stories we can tell and the difference that we can